Hello, this is the RPG Crawler, and welcome to another Indie Game Friday, where each week I take a look at a different independent computer role-playing game. This week I'm taking a look at a 2D side-scrolling Metroidvania that is also a Souls-like, I guess. Developed by Hibernian Workshop and published by The Arcade Crew and Maple Whispering Limited, it was released back in 2019. As I mentioned before, Dark Devotion is a sort of Metroidvania with Souls-like combat, which means that while it has advancement and other RPG elements, it's not quite an RPG by some standards. It's also one of those games that works decently with a controller, so do keep that in mind. In terms of plot, you play the part of a Templar woman whose order is working to unseal a cursed temple. After proceeding within, you find yourself trapped in a hostile realm full of cursed monsters, and are set to go through the ancient temple to find its secrets. In terms of character, this is one of those games that has adjustable stats, but not ability scores per se. You have health and armor, which represent the number of hits you can take, rather than being a numeric hit points to total. Then there's stamina that depletes when you dodge or attack and then regenerates. There's faith that is used to pray at altars and unlock certain areas and replenishes as you kill enemies. You also have an overall movement speed. Aside from this, you can have a couple sets of gear as well as consumable items. You have a main hand weapon, an offhand weapon or shield, or a two-handed weapon that takes both slots. You also have an armor set and a trinket slot. Each weapon set has its own attack routine as well as its own crit percentage, damage rating, and miss percentage. A miss is just the chance of doing minimal damage. Armor has the amount of armor it grants, which represents the number of hits it absorbs, as well as its effect on damage and stuns that are inflicted upon you, the mischance of enemy attacks, as well as stamina regeneration. Finally, the trinket affects your total health or number of unblocked hits you can sustain before death, as well as its own effects on damage from crits, stun chance from crits, stamina regeneration, and enemy mischance. These basic stats can be affected not only by your gear, but also by blessings, curses, wounds, and diseases that you encounter throughout the game. Dark Devotion also has a set of persistent progression elements that will increase your effectiveness over time as you explore the area. You can uncover glyphed tablets that provide permanent bonuses to crit chance, stamina, damage, or faith, and you can use earned experience to unlock a set of talents in a series of tiers, although only one talent can be activated from each tier at a time. Finally, each time that you perish, you lose all of your equipped gear and consumables, then return back to the hub area. In the hub area, you can acquire a new set of gear before heading out from the smith. These starting gear sets can be improved through completing quests and uncovering upgraded weapons over time. In terms of gameplay, you just move left or right, dodge left or right, attack, block, kneel to open up chests and such, pick up items, interact with objects and NPCs, or pray where a faith requirement is indicated. There is no jump mechanic in the game, so a lot of the areas that you explore are pretty much one way. As soon as you step down off of a ledge, you can't get back up usually unless you find a ladder. This also focuses combat to only dodging, blocking, and attacking. During exploration, you'll mostly face enemies with a set number of attack routines. Killing enemies grants you faith up to your limit as well as experience to be used back in the hub to unlock talents. During exploration, you can uncover more weapon sets and armor as well as consumables. You can carry up to 4 types of consumables at any time, which can do a variety of things. Poultices and armor scraps replenish your health and armor respectively, for instance. Other items may deal damage of various sorts, replenish your stamina, and so forth. In the hub area, there are a number of NPCs to speak with, and you can check up on your various talents and progression here. You can also accept quests from the Keeper and grab new sets of gear from the Smith. There are doorways in each area to different places in the world, as well as a teleport arch that can help you get back to an area in a world that you're currently exploring, provided you find a matching arch on the other side. There can only really be one set attuned at any one time. Scattered throughout the worlds are scripted boss fights. These follow a sort of Souls-like progression, or you have a large monster with a suitably ominous name that has predictable attack routines and a large health bar. And destroying a boss may give access to upgrades, additional areas, and so forth. Graphically, the game has a really nice, dark, pixel art style. The pixel art is actually one of the better aspects of the game and really sets the mood. The interface does take a little getting used to, but it's not exactly complex, so it works well enough, and you can pretty much gain information on which each element of the UI does during play at any time. The sound design is actually pretty nice, and the soundtrack is unobtrusive and yet atmospheric, really helping to set the scene. The controls, well, they're all right. I mean, they're responsive enough, and the limitation of everything onto a single plane tends to make combat an exercise in timing and pattern recognition, so, I mean, they do the job. But this brings me to the main problem I had with the game, and that was with the combat. It's not that it's difficult, but rather it just feels a little bit clunky. One can tell the Souls-like inspiration of a lot of the things that they're aiming for in regards to the various enemies and the like, but something just seems a little bit off to me. I've played a number of Souls-like games, both 3D and 2D, and there's a bit of a sliding scale when it comes to them in terms of combat. Dark Devotion, I would put squarely in the middle of that, regarding the combat element at least. All of the fundamentals of a decent 2D Souls-like combat system are there, or at least almost all of them, but they don't quite click to me for some reason. Whether it be the timing of the weapons I was using, maybe, or the way the animations kind of lock you into a course of action, I'm not sure. I mean, it's serviceable, but it's not great, and that can be a problem when so much of the game does rely on this combat. I'm also not sure I'm a big fan of the way all the equipment is lost after each death. I don't count that as a problem in and of itself, since you can pick up a new starting set of equipment among everything that you've unlocked every single time you respawn, but it does result in a bit of less fanfare when it comes to picking up an exceptional weapon during play, since you can find slightly improved variations on a lot of stuff. Any particular piece of gear that isn't a direct line upgrade of the core weapons types that you have is pretty much only good until you die, which is fine if it's a proper roguelike, but I'm not sure how well it works here. The game's strong point is its atmosphere and its presentation, which I actually think are excellent, although somewhat mitigated just by the sheer number of NPCs you find laying around at the start of the game. Visually, the pixel art kind of calls for a lonely quest through a cursed land kind of feel, but then you keep stumbling over Templars from prior expeditions just like almost everywhere during this first part of the game. They don't really do much mechanically, and I think a lot of them are for tutorial purposes, but even in the main hub, there's just a bunch of them just laying around. And they do somewhat detract from the overall tone in that regard, at least I think so. Still, I do really enjoy the game's aesthetic and the world design. Overall, Dark Devotion is a stylish Metroidvania Souls-like that has a couple of glaring flaws. If you can bear with the flaws, it's actually a pretty solid little gem that can be worth your time and expenditure. As far as the slew of pixel art Souls-likes that came out over the last several years go, it is right up near the top in terms of presentation, world building, and aesthetics, although in terms of pure gameplay, there's some better ones out there. I would recommend it to fans of the genre, although you may want to do yourself a favor and catch it on sale or a part of a bundle. At least, from my time with it, I'd say that it's one of those games that is worth getting, but not worth going too far out of your way for. And on that note, I'm going to leave it off here. This has been the RPG Crawler with my Indie Game Friday Dark Devotion. As always, I'll pop a link to where you can pick it up below. If you like what you've seen, remember to leave a like, comment if you got any feedback, and subscribe for more RPG content, both tabletop and computer. Until next time, take care and goodbye. And if you're still watching this far, I'd like to take a moment to thank those who have supported this channel via Patreon or direct donations throughout the years, without which this channel could not have lasted as long as it has. For those who are feeling particularly generous, you can still support my work through Patreon and now through Subscribestar as well, through the links in the description below.